Hey guys, we're back today. We're going to be looking at a company that's been doing very well recently. I believe their CEO just became the second richest person in the world behind Elon. That is Larry Ellison. So we're going to be looking at Oracle. So let's jump into it. Alrighty, you know the drill. So we are going to Google Oracle's 10K, come to their website, and they actually make it pretty easy to filter by year and by filing type. So we're going to do the annual filings of the years that we're looking for, which is, of course, 2021 through 2025. So we have those pulled up. And then with our Excel spreadsheet, we're going to filter our revenues and expenses by the same subsections that they have. So they have cloud services and license support, cloud license and on-premise license, hardware, services, and then operating expenses. Same thing here, cloud services and license support, hardware, services, sales and marketing, R&D, G&A, amortization of intangible assets, acquisition related and other, and restructuring. So we can get into these numbers here. So I'm just going to focus on my Excel sheet since I've already typed these numbers in another tab. So I will zoom in a little bit, make it a little bit easier, and then populate these numbers to show as they are in the company's documents. So now that we have these populated, we can go ahead and start looking through them. So revenues over the last 5 years, pretty steadily increasing, going from 40,000 to 57,000 in a matter of about 5 years. So pretty good. Nothing to complain about there. Looking at the different expenses too, those are also increasing at a fairly steady rate. So makes sense as you're growing, your costs are likely to grow as well in a lot of circumstances. Net income also growing, but we do have this 1 year where things are a bit down. So that is interesting. I wonder what that is stemming from. We can actually look a bit more into this. So this would just be a number here. So it looks like the operating income is a bit lower here just because ultimately it looks like the expenses are a bit higher compared to other years. And especially when you compare the expenses to the revenues. So just not as big of a gap there, ultimately leading to a little less net income, but still good signs all the way through here. We're still increasing. Going down a bit further into the earnings per share, it looks like 2022 wasn't the best year just because we had net income taking a bit of a dip. Earnings per share also takes a bit of a dip, but then starts to climb back up. So that is good. Shares outstanding also takes a little bit of a dip in 2022 and 23, but climbing back up there. So we can see all that is looking pretty strong. Expenses as a percent of sales still floating around that 70-ish%, so nothing too out of the ordinary or alarming there. But we can continue on down into the percentage of sales. So let's populate these numbers. Nothing too strange to point out down here. I would say it's just notable that we have 1 year where CapEx slash property, plant, and equipment is not negative, so that's going to affect things a little bit. Receivables starts to get negative over the past 3 years. No inventory just because of the nature of this company, mostly a software company, some hardware as well, but not a lot of inventory, at least not enough to report. And then payables, pretty positive and trending upward there. Probably the biggest thing just to notice down here is changes in working capital are positive over the past 4-ish years. So definitely a good sign, and we can get into the discounted cash flow analysis. Getting into the terminal discount rates and free cash flow growth rate, went with 8%. It's a little above industry standard, usually around 7%, but didn't want to go too much different from that industry standard. The growth rate, I feel like 3 is a bit small, but Oracle's just a company that's a bit older, not like a new startup by any means or anything like that. So although they do continue to do well, I'm thinking that 3% being a little bit lower is probably more accurate just because for projecting 10 years out, 3% is going to look pretty good overall. As you can see from the revenues, if they're growing 3%, in 10 years, they're going from 66,000 to 84,000. So pretty significant even with that 3%. So you can just see those revenues steadily growing over time. Trying to see if there's anything that's really sticking out. Nothing too crazy. Income, taxes, net income. So you can see net income is steadily increasing as well. Nothing that alarming. The percentage here is also around that, probably 3% on average just over these 10 years, given some ups and some downs. So yeah, pretty steady growth. So down into the free cash flow, definitely a good sign here, steadily growing anywhere from 14, 6% over 20, and we're averaging just around 3%, similar to the revenues. So that's a good sign. We're steadily increasing there and almost doubling over the 10 years that we're projecting this, from 30 almost to 60. So that's definitely good. We have our terminal value here, over 1 million, and of course scale adjusted. And so we can get into the debt and cash. And so with this, we can pull up that information. So we are looking at debt of 168,361. Cash is going to be here at 10,786. And then shares outstanding, this will put us at this 2.81. So adjusting for the scale that we have set up here. And then finally, with the share price of 242.06. And so that is going to give us an implied share value of 303 with a 25% upside. So it's definitely looking like it could be a buy, and that is agreeing with 40 analysts just on Google here. So looking good for Oracle, but we can actually get into a sensitivity analysis and just see what some different numbers might look like. So to perform this sensitivity analysis, we're basically going to look at what would happen to that implied shared price of 303 if we're changing the discount rate and growth rate. So the way we can do this, we will put this implied shared value right here, and then we're basically going to just type out some numbers of what it will look like. So we'll do the growth rate of 1%, 1.5, 2%, and we will drag that out to, say, we'll just do 4%, add some decimals there so you can see those. And then on this side, we will do the discounted terminal discount rate. So say we want to start with 6.5, 7, 7.5, 8. Actually, we could go a little bit more specific. We could do 6.5, 6.8, 7.1. And let's just drag those so we can make it a little faster. So now that we have this range here, we can highlight. We will go to data, what if analysis, data table, and then for the columns, we can do the discount rate, the rows, growth rate. Now we have these numbers, put them in a money format. And then just for a little extra help in reading this, if it is greater than this number, or sorry, the current price, we will fill with a green. And then if it is less than the current price, we will fill with red. So makes it much easier to read. You can basically see the green numbers with these growth rates and the discount rates on this side. As the discount rate gets lower, you have more options. And as the growth rate gets larger, you have more options as well. How cool is that? So we can basically see we did 8% for the discount and 3% for the growth rate. So where that lines up should match 303.17 with our implied value, and it does. So it looks like we did that correctly. And you can basically just see with the different growth rates and discount rates where the share price would fall. How amazing.
Very cool. Thanks for checking it out. Let me know if there are any other companies you want me to do, and we'll see you next time.